Hello world, and welcome to Passion Corners. In this tutorial, we will learn how to consume an API, and as always, this is what we're going to be building. An application that can track cryptocurrency updates. The user can see the live changes of the price in real time. They can also see upcoming events to be in the loop. And finally, they can search for their favorite crypto coin. I hope you're excited to get started, and I'll see you in the next slide. Alright, before we get started, we have to get the boring stuff out of the way. And that is, what is an API? So API stands for Application Programming Interface. Alright, cool, but what does that mean? Alright, so an API enables for applications to exchange data and functionality easily and securely. Let's use Facebook for an example. They open up a feature called Login with Facebook, so they created an API for that. And now if we build our own application and want it to have that feature, all we have to do is call the API or consume it, and now our user can log into our application by using their Facebook account. So once again, an API enables applications to exchange data and functionality. Alright, with that out of the way, the API we are consuming will be from CoinGecko. They allows developers to use their API for free. And there's a range of things that we can do with it. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, the first thing we want to do is navigate to the project GitHub repository and clone down the starting project. It will be built on Vue.js that has all the front end set up, and all we have to do is implement the API features. So now we want to make sure that we're on the starter branch. And we can either clone down the project or download it as a zip. So once you've done that, drag your project folder in your text editor of choice, and I'll see you in VS Code. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is open up a terminal and run yarn install. So this will set up our Vue application and install all the necessary packages. So while that is running, let's navigate to our package.json so I can break down the packages that we will be using. So all of these right here will be Font Awesome. This allows us to use the Font Awesome icon libraries. Next we have Tailwind CSS. This will be the CSS frameworks that help us build the front end. And then finally, we have Axios. This allows us to make requests to an API endpoint. We don't have to use it, and we can just use the native fetch API feature, but I prefer using Axios, but either methods will be fine. And that's it. Everything else is the Vue core. Alright, so it looks like our install is complete. Now let's run yarn serve to start up our project. So here's the link for our current project. Let's open up a browser and navigate there. So localhost 8080. So currently all of these data are placeholder, and now we need to pull the live data from CoinGecko using their API. And before we do that, let's quickly review our layout. We have three main sections. Here's our marquee, our events cards, and our table. Alright, the next thing we want to do is open up a new tab, and let's navigate to coingecko.com. And then we want to scroll all the way down to the footer right here and click on Developer API. Next, we want to explore the docs. And here's the documentation to use their API. So there's a bunch of stuff that we can do. So let's explore the documentation a little bit. So here it says when we use their free API, we have a rate limit of 50 calls per minute, meaning we can call the data 50 times per minute. So that means for every 1.2 seconds, we can call their API. And down here is the clients. So if we have a backend setup and using any of these frameworks like Node, PHP, Python, or Ruby, they have a package that we can install to use their API and set up our application even faster. And down here is the changelog. This shows us what update they have done to their API. And here is what we want. These are called endpoints. And we're primarily going to focus on this sections right here for coins, because these will pull the data for the coins, and we want to use these endpoints. So this first one right here, when we use it, it will return us the coin ID, name, symbol. And the second one, it will return the coin price, market cap, volume, and market related data. And this is the one that we want to use. So let's expand it. And here we can filter out what we want the data to return. So the first parameter is what currency do we want the coin current price to return as. And here we can search for individual coin, their category, and the order we want it to return to, how many coin we want it to return, minimum is 1 and 250 is max. per page. And here is the price changes in percentage in a range of time. Alright, let's scroll back up and click try it out. So this is a required field, we must fill it out. And let's say the currency we want to return would be USD. Everything else, let's leave it to default. But here, let's change this to 1 hour. So now we will get back the data for the first 100 coins based on their market cap. Alright, now we want to press execute. And this will be the data that will be returning to us. And here will be our endpoint. So now we want to grab this endpoint and use it in our application because we don't want to go here and do all of this. We want to build out an application to do all of this for us and return this data. Alright, so let's copy this into our clipboard. Now let's navigate to VS Code. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is close this terminal and close this package.json file. And we want to use that API endpoint to pull all the data into our application. And we do that by using Axios. So let's navigate to our app.view file. It's going to be in our source folder. And this is the file right here. This will be the main file for our application. So here's our template with our 3 main sections. We have our marquee, events, and table cards. Here's our script section. This is where we're going to put all the app logic in. And here's our base style where we set up the marquee animation and some background gradient. The rest of the style is written in Tailwind. So that's basically our application. Alright, now we want to start using Axios. Alright, first let's collapse our VS Code sidebar and navigate to the script section. We want to say import Axios from Axios. So this will import the Axios library in for us. Now let's navigate to the setup section. And we want to define a coin constant. So const coins. So when we pull the data from CoinGecko, we're going to store all the data into this coin constant. And we're going to use a ref. And initially it will be an empty array. So basically what we want to do is when we pull all the data, we want to store it into this array. Alright, next we're going to make our API call. So we want to say const get coins equal async. And then we want to set up our try and catch block. Inside our catch block, there will be an error parameter that we can use. So if there's an error, let's just console log it. Now in our try block, we want to use Axios. So let's say await Axios.get. And here's the endpoint that we want to pass in. So let's just paste it from our clipboard. And this was the CoinGecko endpoint that we copied it into our clipboard a minute ago. Now this will return all the data for us. So we actually want to store that into a variable. So let's say const response. So now all of the data is going to be inside our response. And what we want to do is push all that data into our coins ref. So let's say coins.value equal the response data. So now we have all the data inside our coins ref. And the next thing we want to do is make sure our application have the newest data. And we can do this because CoinGecko allows us to pull the data every 1.2 seconds. So let's set up a function that execute that. So down here, let's say fetch timer. And we can use the set interval method and fire our get coins function every 1.2 seconds. Alright, now that we have the data, let's update our template to use those data instead of the placeholder that we currently have. So the first thing we want to do is work on our marquee sections. So I will expand this. And we have a total of 15 items, 10 in our main and 5 in our clones. So why do we have a clone? So let's just remove them and see what happens. So remove, give this a quick save. Now let's check out our application. So if we don't remove them, there will be a gap right here. And that's just the nature of the marquee setup. And we need to fill in that gap with the clones to have the effect that everything is looping continuously. And we only want to show 10 because we are pulling 100 and we don't really want to show 100 up here because it will take forever for it to loop through. So we'll just show the top 10 coins based on their market cap. Alright, so let's build this out. So back into VS Code. So let's press Command Z to undo. And let's focus on the main section first. So what we want to do is actually delete all of these and just keep the first LI. So now in our app, we know that we have 100 coins stored in our coins ref, but we only need the first 10. So what we want to do is filter to our coins ref and pull in the first 10. So let's scroll down to our script. So below fetch timer, let's say 10 items. And we want to use a computed property. So let's say computed. And inside this, we want to look inside our coins ref. So coins.value and get the first 10 items. And we're going to use the slice method to do that. So let's say 0 and 10. And we actually need to return this. So just say return right here. And then let's also store this computed property inside a variable. So let's say cons 10 items. Now we actually want to return everything so we can use it in our template. So down here, let's say return. And what we want to return is the 10 items. So give this a quick save. Now let's scroll all the way up to our template. Now let's focus on our first main LI tag, which is here. So what we want to do is loop through our 10 items and display them out. And we can use a v4. So it's going to be coin in 10 items. We also need to define the key. So let's say coin.name. And now all we have to do is flush out these values to use our data. So instead of this placeholder right here, let's remove it. And we want to bind this source value and tell it to use the coin.image. Instead of this hardcode value, let's use the coin name. Also here will be the coin symbol. Let's go down here. This will be the coin price. So it's going to be coin.current_price. I will scroll up. And then finally we have our percentage. So let's keep the percentage and remove this hardcode value. We want to say coin.price_change_percentage_24 hour. Alright, give this a quick save and let's check out our application. So here's the live data. The next thing we want to do is pull in the 5 clone value to have the effects of the continuous Marquise loop. Alright, so back into VS Code. So what we want to do now is clone the first 5 items. So let's navigate to our script tag. So under 10 items, let's say clone. And we can use the computer property, but let's do something different. So let's use a watch effect. And what we want to do is the same thing what we did for the 10 items. Is loop through our coins ref and get the first 5 items. But this time we want to store that into a variable. So let's just say cons dupe, stand for duplicate, and say coins.value.slice. And we want to get the first 5 items. Next, we want to set up a clone array. So up here, let's say cons clone equal ref an empty array. And down here, we want to push the duplicate inside the clone array. So now let's say clone.value is equal to the duplicate. Now we need to return the clone. So down here, let's say clone. Give this a quick save. Now let's scroll up to our template. We can actually collapse this. We want to focus on the clone. So expand this out. So once again, the same thing. Let's use a v4. And we want to say coin in clone. We also need to define a key. That would be coin.name. And down here, we're going to do the exact same thing. So it's going to be coin.name, coin.symbol. This will be the current price. So coin.current price. And here the percentage change. So let's say coin price underscore change underscore percentage underscore 24 hours. All right, give this a quick save. Now let's check out our application. And here's our Marquise. So now there is no gap and our marquees have the effect that it is looping continuously. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is dynamically change the percentage indicator, whether if it's a negative red or positive green. So currently everything is green, and that's not the case because there's a negative percentage here. Let's see, right here. So XRP is currently down. And we need our template to dynamically show if it's red or green. So let's jump into VS Code. And what we want to do is navigate to our main.js file and write a custom filter. So here, let's say custom filter. And we want to say app.config.global properties. And then we want to say $filter. And then set up our filter. The first filter we want to set up is the %. So let's say price underscore change. And we're going to pass in the value of the current coin. So the first thing we want to do in this function is to return everything as a string. So let's say value equal value to string. And then we want to say if the value includes a negative sign, we want to return that value. Else, just return an empty value for us. Alright, give this a quick save. Now let's navigate back to our app.view. So here where it says %green, now we also want a %red. So let's copy this p tag and then let's paste it here and change this to be red. We also need to change the text to be red right here. And then we want to use a if. So basically it's a if statement. And then we want to use our filter. So $.filters. Let's go back to our main.js file really quick. It should be an S right here also. Filters. Give that a quick save. Now back into our app.view. So after filters, let's say price underscore change. So this is our custom filter. And inside here, we want to use the coin percentage change. So let's say coin dot price underscore change underscore percentage change 24 hours. So I will split screen this. It'll be easier for me to explain. So basically what we're saying right here, if this return a value, then show this, right? And if this does not return a value, we want to show this. So we're going to say else right here. Because in our custom filter, if our data return a negative value, we're going to return that number. Meaning our price change filter function will have a value. So that means this will also have a value. It will return that value. But then if our data does not have the negative sign, it will not return anything. Therefore, our VF will not return anything. So that will be false and it will not render this p tag. Instead, it will render the %green. And there's one more thing we need to adjust, which is the icon. We want to say down right here. Now we also want to do this for our main. So let's scroll up. So here it is. So we want to copy our %green. And say %red. Let's change this to red. And let's copy the VF. Throw down here. And we'll paste it here. We also want to say else right here. And the icon will be a down. Alright, give this a quick save. Let's check out our application. And there it is. Alright, next there are actually two more filters that we want to make. And the first one will be a comma separator. So let's say Bitcoin right here. We want to comma separate the price. And the next filter will be limiting the string that will return. So right here it's returning the whole percentage value. And we want to limit its value so it'd be easier for the user to see. So about right here. Alright, cool. So let's make that happen. VS Code. Now in our main.js file, let's set up another filter. So let's say comma and we want to say comma dot sep. We want a value, and inside we want to return a filter. So first we need our value to be a string, and then we want to replace our value with the comma separator. So inside replace will be some boilerplate code that I have already in my clipboard. I will paste it in here. Basically what it's saying is give a comma separate for every 3 values. All right, the next filter we want will be Truncate String to limit our string return. And we want to say string limit. We also need to pass in the value and the limit size. First, we also need to comma separate this right here. So the first thing we want to say is if there is no value, do not return anything. Next, we want our value to be a string. So let's say toString. And then we want to say if the value length, which is the length in our number, is less than or equal to our defined size, then we want to return that value. Else, we just want to return the size that we define. So let's say value subtract 0 and size. So let's give this a quick save. So let's scroll up here to our price, and we want to use our comma filter. So here, let's copy this into our clipboard, and we want to say $filters dot our filter name, which is comma underscore sep, and then we want to paste in our clipboard. Next, we want to filter out our % red and green. So here, so we can say Command D to copy the same text and then cut it into our clipboard. And we want to say $filters, and then we want to use the string limit filters. So let's say string underscore limit, and then we want to paste in our clipboard and define our size. So let's say 5 will be the max size. All right, now let's actually copy everything right here, and we want to do this into our clone section. So for the price red and green, let's copy this, Command D, remove it, and then paste it in. And then up here, we want to also use the filter for this. So into our clipboard, let's say $filters, so comma underscore sep, and then paste in our clipboard. Now give this a quick save. All right, in our main.js right here, we actually need to say value will be equal to the value to string. So give this a quick save. Now let's check out our app. So here's our comma separator, and here's our percentage truncate. All right, seems like I didn't change the images right here. So let's fix that real quick back in VS Code. So that will be in our clone sections, which is right here. So let's bind this, and let's say coin.image. Give this a quick save. Now check out our app, and here it is. This is our marquee completed. So the next thing we want to do is work on our table and then our events cards. So back into VS Code. All right, so let's collapse the marquee sections because that is completed. And we can also close our main.js file. Let's collapse this for now. And here is the section that we need to concentrate on. And here's our table. Here's our search section. And here's the head of the table. And inside our body, we have 10 placeholder items. So what we want to do is loop through our data and display all the coins data in this table. But also we need to keep in mind that we have a search feature. So when we search, it should only show the related coin. So therefore we want to manipulate how our data display on the table. So let's scroll down to our script sections right here. And we want to use a computer property. So let's say const matching name computed. And we want to filter through our coins data, which we store in a coins ref. So let's say return coins.value, and we're going to say filter. So we're going to look through all of the coin and say if the coin.id includes our search terms. So let's say search.value. Then we only want to show that. So our search value will be whatever the user type in the search box. And we also need to define that. So let's go up here and let's say const search, and let's use ref. So initially it will be an empty string, and whenever the user type in something like Cardano, then it will look inside our ref coin array and filter out that item and only show the Cardano coin. Alright, before we implement this, we need to return it. So let's say matching names and then search. Now let's scroll up to our template. So first is the search. And here's our input field for the search box. We want to use a V model and we want to say search right here. So now our input field is connected to our search ref. Next, we want to loop through our data. So right here, we can actually delete everything here and just keep the first one. Let's expand this. And then here we want to say V4 to loop through our data. And we want to say coin in matching names. We need to define a key. So let's say coin.name. And now we just need to display the data. So the first thing is right here, the rank of the coin. So let's say coin.market_cap_rank. Here we want to display the logo. So let's bind this and then remove this. And we want to say coin.image here. Next is our coin name. After this will be our symbol. Here is the price. And then we also want to use our filter. So let's say $filters dot comma underscore sep. And then we want to pass in the coin current price. And then down here, we want to set up our green or red percentage. So let's copy this div and paste it on top. And then we want to change this to red. And this will be down. And then inside this div, we want to use a VF. So VF, we want to say $filters dot price underscore changed. And then inside this, we want to say coin dot price underscore change underscore percentage underscore 24 hours. So if this is true, display this. Else, we want to display the green percentage. So here, let's delete this value and use our data. So we're gonna say coin.marketcap underscore change underscore percentage underscore 24 hours. And we want to copy this and also paste it up here. All right, next is the market cap. So let's delete this value and just keep the $. And we also want to use our comma filter. So $filters dot comma underscore sep. And pass in the coin market cap. And here will be the coin total volume. So let's also use the filters dot comma underscore sep. And we're going to pass in the coin total volume. So all of these parameters right here is from the data that we pull. And we know that because in CoinGecko, these are the properties that return: total volume, market cap, current price. And that's how we got those values. So back into VS Code. All right, before we save this, I believe I misspelled right here. So it should be coin. And then also down here, it should be price change without the D. And then finally right here, it should be comma sep without the T. Give this a quick save. Now let's check our app. And here's the live data. We can also search for a coin. All right, this complete our table. Now let's work on our events cards. So back into VS Code. So the first thing we want to do is let's collapse this. So currently we're only pulling the coin data. And what we want to do is pull another endpoint which will return the events. So let's navigate to CoinGecko. Let's scroll all the way down here. And right here, events. Let's use the first one. Let's leave everything as default and try it out. Execute. And here is our endpoint that will return the events. So let's copy this endpoint. Now back into VS Code. The first thing we want to do is set up another ref. So let's say cons events will be ref a blank array. And then we want to make another API call. So let's say down here, I'll scroll up. Let's say cons get events, async. We want to set up our try and catch block. Log out the error if there's any. So let's say log error. And then up here, we're going to store our data in a response. So let's say cons res await axios.get. And here will be our endpoint. So let's paste it in. And now we want to push the response data into our events array. So let's say events.value will be the response data.data. And we need to say data twice because back in CoinGecko, the events is also wrapped inside another data array. And that's why we need to say data twice. Back into VS Code. Next, we want to fire this function. So let's say get events. And then we need to return our events. So down here, let's say events. Now let's scroll up to our events template, which is here. There are a total of 3 placeholders. So let's remove everything and keep the first one. Now we want to loop through our data. So let's say v4 event in events. We need to give it a key. So let's say event.title. We also need to bind the href to go to the appropriate link. So let's say event.website. Next is the image. So let's remove this. Bind our source. We want to say event.screenshot. After this will be our title. So it's going to be event.title. Next is the event description. So we want to use our filter. So $filters.string_limit. And we want to say event.description. And we're going to limit that to 80 because the spaces also count. So give this a quick save and check out our app. And here it is. All right, and that's it. We completed our application. We have our marquees, our events cards, our tables, and then we can also search. All right, and this will wrap up the project, and I'll see you in the outro. Congratulations, you now have an application that can track cryptocurrency prices and events in real time. I hope that you gained something valuable out of this, and I also hope that earned your thumbs up. With that being said, I'll see you in the next tutorial.